Josh Harris was reportedly in the room when 6 quarterbacks were interviewed by the Washington Commanders at the NFL Scouting Combine, why it's not a big deal and why it could be a big deal. Coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Commanders.
Your daily podcast on the Washington Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into this episode of Locked On Commanders, your daily podcast covering the Washington Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks so much for making Locked On Commanders your first listen of the day every day. And don't forget that you can subscribe for free on YouTube or wherever you're listening to this podcast. And you can continue this conversation with me by becoming a Locked On Commanders insider. Just go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnCommanders and sign up today. From there, you'll get news, analysis, insight, bonus content, and one-on-one conversations with me via text message. So a lot of cool stuff going on over there. Become a Locked On Commanders insider. Again, join subtext.com/LockedOnCommanders and text me today. I'm David Harrison, credential member of the media covering the Washington Commanders for CommanderCountry.com, a part of Sports Illustrated's Fan Nation. I'm here with you every Monday through Friday, along with our everydayers and everydayers. You already know, but I'm going to tell you anyway. I appreciate your continued support. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel, who wants new members to get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. Go to FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started today. On today's episode, we are going to hear from Georgia tight end Brock Bowers. We're going to go over the winners of day one of drills of the NFL Scouting Combine. But first, we're going to talk about why it is not a big deal until it's a big deal for Josh Harris to be in the meetings with 6 quarterback prospects in Indianapolis this week. So the Washington Commanders, obviously, just like every other NFL team out here, looking at figuring out what their future is going to be. They're talking possible trades. They're talking about re-signs, cuts, all kinds of stuff happening out here at this time of year. And they're also looking at these prospects and they're interviewing these prospects. So when we talk to Dan Quinn, we talk to Adam Peters, that's what they emphasize, right? The medical evaluations, the interview process is the most important part of this entire week. The drills are cool. Don't get me wrong, the measurements and all that stuff, awesome stuff, awesome kind of stuff going on there. But the biggest advantage of the NFL Scouting Combine is getting to meet the potential prospects they're going to draft in April in the flesh for the first time, specifically quarterbacks. And we now have confirmation that the Washington Commanders have interviewed 6 quarterbacks in this year's NFL draft class. Those quarterbacks being Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, Drake May, J.J. McCarthy, Michael Penix Jr., and Bo Nix. Caleb Williams out of USC, Jaden Daniels from LSU, Drake May, North Carolina, J.J. McCarthy, Michigan, Michael Penix Jr., Washington, and Bo Nix coming out of Oregon. So those quarterbacks have all been formally interviewed by the Washington Commanders. Now, that is not necessarily the biggest news. I think everybody pretty much expected this team to interview at least the top 3 quarterbacks, if not more. The Washington Commanders themselves, I think it was Adam Peters said they're going to interview a lot of quarterbacks. They also, he and Dan Quinn both kind of gave some votes of confidence as far as the abilities and potential of one Sam Howell, but they also admitted that they're certainly out here to talk to quarterbacks. And there's been a lot of conversation this week about trades up, trade back, all kinds of different things. Ian Rappaport himself with NFL Network kind of putting out there that, hey, look, the Washington Commanders trading back from number 2 is not outside the realm of possibility. So it's something that needs to be understood. But then Adam Schefter reported also at the NFL Scouting Combine that according to his sources or information, Josh Harris, the managing partner of the ownership group of the Washington Commanders, attending his first NFL Scouting Combine as an owner in the NFL, did sit in the formal meetings with those 6 quarterback prospects. Now, that has gotten a wide range of reaction. And I don't know all of the reaction. I don't listen to everybody and I don't talk to everybody, obviously, but I do know there is a contingency of people. There's a portion of people, media, fan base, all that kind of stuff, who say it's no big deal. Don't worry about it. But I also know there's a portion of the fan base that says that it is a big deal and you should worry about it. And there's even a portion of the observers in the media who think that it's akin to David Tepper type of ownership, Dan Snyder type of ownership. And look, I never tell anybody how to do their job. I'm not telling anybody how to do their job, but to compare sitting in a room while his brain trust interviews potential leaders of the franchise, akin to what David Tepper has been doing in Carolina, akin to what Dan Snyder did in Washington, is ridiculous. To be blunt about it, it's ridiculous to go that far about it. It's okay if you want to dislike the owners sitting in the interviews. It's okay if you want to dislike the interview or the owner participating in the interviews, which again, the reports that we have go to the extent that he was in the room, not actually dishing out questions or telling people to draw stuff on the whiteboard or anything like that. He was just in the room. You know what I mean? So to say that goes as far as calling in a draft pick off your yacht or torpedoing your own franchise, like David Tepper has been doing, to me, it just goes way too far. So the bottom line in this thing, here's why I don't think it's a big deal right now. Josh Harris has been involved in some way, shape, or form on everything that's happened with this team since the day he took over, whether it came from roster formation, whether it came to cuts, whether it came to who to start, who not to start, not necessarily in making the decision, but understanding the thought process about what's going on in his organization. We call that hands-on ownership. We call that hands-on leadership, and that's interested leadership. And when you have a business, when you have an organization, you want the person at the very top of the food chain to be invested, right? And in the meantime, we've got Philadelphia 76ers fans, you got Philadelphia Flyers fans complaining that Josh Harris is not paying enough attention to their franchises because he's paying too much attention to the Washington Commanders. But then the Washington Commanders, who he is quote unquote paying too much attention to, now has people around it complaining that he's paying too much attention to the Washington Commanders. So if you're a media member, I feel like you have a little bit more of a responsibility to not go off the deep end over nothing. You know what I'm saying? Now, he's already said as well this offseason that he plans on being in the draft room in April, but that doesn't mean he's making picks. That doesn't mean he's influencing picks. He just wants to be there to, one, see the process unfold, to understand the entirety of the process, and also understand why are we doing the things that we're doing? What is the why behind the action going on? And I can tell you right now, from running organizations with hundreds and hundreds of people counting on these decisions being made, it's always better if you have everybody invested. You don't want people checked out of this process. So if you don't agree, that's fine. But again, just to me, to get to the levels that some people have talked about this with some of the other owners that they're comparing it to me, it's too much. It's over the edge. In this sense, there's nothing really to see here at this time. There's owners that meddle all of the time, and some of them actually have really successful teams. How does 6 playoff trips in 10 seasons sound to Washington fans and to Washington media? I think most Washington media would love to cover 6 playoff runs in the next 10 seasons. Well, that's what the Dallas Cowboys have in the last 10 seasons. They've got 6 playoff runs and literally one of the most meddling owners in NFL history, behind maybe only Al Davis. The McNair family in Houston, by contrast, is completely hands-off. They have been since before their patriarch passed away. But ever since the patriarch passed away, they've been hands-off. Back with Deshaun Watson, DeAndre Hopkins, Bill O'Brien, before all that drama tore everything down, they actually had something pretty good going on with a completely hands-off approach from the ownership. The Green Bay Packers don't even have an owner, don't even actually have a Josh Harris in their organization, yet they're one of the most consistently successful teams in the NFL. So you have teams that are hands-off, showing some signs of success, teams that have owners that are completely dedicated, having signs of success, and then an organization that just doesn't even have an owner showing signs of success. So simply having an owner that's invested is not a reason to get upset. Now, if we find out later that Josh Harris vetoed a certain pick and said, no, we're going this way and doing all okay, fine, then have a problem. But to jump to that conclusion right now, I understand the negative feelings from the last 20 years or so. I understand the level of PTSD that can come from there, but we're all human beings. We have the ability to use logic and the ability to understand that Josh Harris is not Dan Snyder. Josh Harris is not David Tepper. Josh Harris is not Dean Spanos in Los Angeles. You know what I mean? He's not Jerry Jones. He's Josh Harris. And until he starts giving us reasons to actually think he's one of these toxic owners, let's stop assigning other people's toxicity to him. That's all I'm saying. Now, again, that's just me speaking to other media people, because we actually do have criteria that we're supposed to follow as far as being responsible in our reporting and our reactions and our assessments of things. And if anybody out there doesn't consider themselves an actual journalist, actual part of the media, then fine, do what you want to do. If you're a fan, by all means, go nuts, because that's what fans are for. That's what fans are allowed to do. So again, just understand your walk of life. If you're one of those people, understand if I'm talking to you or if I'm not talking to you. So again, that's just how I see it. And honestly, if you disagree with me, that's perfectly fine too. You're allowed to disagree with me. That's how this works, and it's fun. That's how I see it. You tell me how you see it. We'll all talk about it for a couple of days, and then we'll move on with our lives. How does Georgia's top offensive prospect in the NFL draft in a long time see it? Brock Bowers from the Georgia Bulldogs coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. And FanDuel wants you to get buckets on your first bet with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers, you get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. The Boston Celtics are currently plus 220 favorites to win the NBA Finals this season. The Denver Nuggets are favored out of the Western Conference, carrying the second highest odds in the entire association at plus 420. Meanwhile, the San Francisco 49ers are still favorites to win Super Bowl 59. The line now is at plus 500. The Kansas City Chiefs are still second favorite to win Super Bowl 59. That line right now is plus 650 to win their third straight Super Bowl and to do it in New Orleans. Probably not many better cities out there to win 3 straight Super Bowls in than NOLA. So bet on your favorite NBA players or teams or your NFL futures with FanDuel. Get your quick bets, live same-game parlays, exclusive props, and more. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Continuing on now with today's episode of Locked On Commanders. Thanks again for making Locked On Commanders your first listen, your first view today and every day. Make sure you come back tomorrow, or not tomorrow. Make sure you come back at the beginning of the week. We've got more combine stuff going on over the weekend. Listen, I'm going to be fully transparent here with you guys. I am trying to do some bonus content this weekend. I do plan on being in the arena, Lucas Oil Stadium tomorrow for the DBs and the tight end drills. And then, of course, Saturday for the quarterbacks and wide receivers. And I do have the intention of doing some bonus episodes, but insiders, you already know this. I came down with a pretty killer headache, migraine level headache on Thursday, and it actually had me to leave the scouting combine area early. And I ended up watching the drills, the first night of drills from home, just because I was down and out. And honestly, maybe that's why I got as heated as I did in that first segment about that topic, because usually it really wouldn't bother me. But, look, I don't feel good, and I'm not feeling good. Even right now, I feel better. I can at least do this episode. But we will see how things go from here moving forward. If I'm not sick, I think what it is just burning the candle at both ends, to be quite honest with you. So if I can physically do it, I will be there. And potentially we'll get some bonus episodes. If not, at a minimum, we will at least come back Monday and we will do a complete wrap up of winners from the scouting combine weekend. And then maybe we'll do like a mock draft Tuesday to make up for that. Anyway, stay tuned for that. Definitely content coming here on the channel. Locked On has also launched the first ever national 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with your local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every single league. So go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. And now, Georgia tight end Brock Bowers.
Are you going to be working out tomorrow?
We'll see. I mean, if not tomorrow, definitely pro day.
Brock, is this a good time to be a tight end, like a move tight end, the way the NFL is sort of trending that way, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, tight end's a prime position right now to be, and I'm just glad it's now.
How do you look at your game? What do you bring to a team in the pass game?
Yeah, I feel like I pretty good yards after catch, and just be able to make people miss, and just turn good plays into great plays.
Rookie season was so much far ahead, and how does that give you confidence and thoughts about what you look like as a rookie?
Yeah, we watched a bunch of film of him at Georgia, kind of film study and see what he does good, and it was awesome to watch a rookie tight end come in there and ball out. He does a lot of the little things well. I mean, route running wise, just gets open. I mean, that's what you got to do. I grew up watching Gronk. I love watching Gronk, and he's kind of like a huge role model, I guess, for me. Just looking at him when I was growing up, and then also love watching Kittle and Kelsey.
Have you had a chance to talk to Gronk?
A little bit at Super Bowl.
Brock, you're being talked about as sort of a can't-miss prospect. What area of your game would you say that you need to improve upon? And have you met with the Bengals?
Yeah, I've met with the Bengals, and I think one of the things I can improve upon is kind of secondary reaction when I'm blocking, like getting engaged with somebody and they spin or something, and just being able to reset and re-engage. Oh yeah, definitely. It was an injury that happened this year, so they're obviously asking about it and everything, but yeah, it's 100%.
Brock, do you have a favorite route that you'd like to run, and if so, why?
That's tough to say. I like catching the ball, like just in the flat and stuff, and making things happen. I mean, that's fun to me.
Brock, when you've talked to teams or when you hear people, do you think that your blocking is what they're most concerned with? They know you can catch and run. Are more teams concerned or interested in how you're going to develop as a blocker or not a complete tight end?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I put some good things on film, blocking wise too. So, I mean, yeah, they can obviously help me a lot with technique, and I'm able to see how it translates to the next level.
Brock, when teams have been going over film in your meetings, is there any part of your game that they've been picking out or things like that?
Yeah, I mean, I'd just say, well, one of the things, for example, is like secondary reaction, like I mentioned earlier, like when I get engaged in defensive end spins or something, being able to re-engage and just sustain the block.
Brock, what do you think is your best trait as a tight end?
I'd say just run after the catch. I think I do a pretty good job at that, and I mean, it's just a good part of my game.
Do you prefer to play in the slot or as an inline tight end?
I mean, it doesn't really matter to me. Wherever I'm needed, wherever I need to go.
You're obviously physically gifted, but how important is it to you to do the little stuff behind the scenes, film study, extra reps after practice, things like that?
Yeah, I think that's just super important for anyone's game. I mean, just being able to get in the film room and watch your opponent, see what they do, see their tendencies, and I mean, just know what they're going to do before they're going to do it.
Generally, the tight end is the quarterback's best friend, right? The safety blanket. How important is it to you to build that rapport with your quarterback and become that guy?
Yeah, I mean, it's you have to have a good relationship with the quarterback, build trust, and that kind of comes through reps and practice and everything. So, yeah, I'll be trying to work on that first place I go.
The Senior Bowl, you mentioned wanting to play with the Titans or considering into the Titans. One, what brought that, and have you met with them? And so, what was that like?
Yeah, I met with the Titans, and it went good. I thought. I mean, it's a lot of moving around and a lot of seeming like repetitive stuff. So I mean, just answering those core questions and watching film and kind of just let them know about my football knowledge.
And what made you interested in them? You said it earlier. What made you interested in them?
I mean, I just kind of mentioned it like as a cool place to live, like Nashville, Tennessee, would be cool.
Brock, playing at Georgia, how big was getting in those big games for you?
Sorry, what?
Like the big game experience, how important was that for you in developing as a player?
Yeah, I mean, I love playing in the big games. It's, I mean, biggest stage. It's always fun. It always makes it more fun, more competitive. So I always love going out there and playing.
What's been the most fun of the whole NFL draft evaluation process since you left Georgia? What's been the most fun thing you've done after Georgia?
I'd say being here. I mean, it's just kind of you kind of think about it when you're growing up. You watch on TV, and it's just kind of cool being here and just kind of. I mean, just being here is cool.
Brock, you've been pretty unassuming and humble throughout your career. Are you that way on the football field too, or is there any trash talk in you, or do you not engage with some of those DBs try to get your head?
I mean, it's part of the game a little bit here and there, but nothing too crazy. Now I'm not huge into talking.
Brock, what do you think you've improved the most from the first year to your season?
Yeah, I'd just say just my overall football knowledge and just kind of seeing what defense they're going to do before they do it, and just knowing what I should do when I see stuff.
You come from a family with a lot of sports in their background. How did that support system help you in this process?
Yeah, I mean, they've been just super supportive. I mean, just can't thank them enough for everything they've done for me, and especially my parents. They've just kind of supported me through the whole process, and just no matter what's coming, I know they'll be behind me. Yeah, last year I played around 235, maybe like a little bit more some weeks. I mean, kind of fluctuates a little bit between 235 and a little bit higher. But yeah, we'll see. I mean, I've been trying to just gradually build up my weight and play higher every year.
Can you keep your speed at a higher weight, do you think, if you're 245 or 250? Is that something that's possible?
I think so, yeah.
If the Chicago Bears were to draft you, what could you tell the fans about the player and person that they're going to get if you were to?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm kind of one of those no-issue dudes. I mean, I'm not going to cause any off-field issues, obviously, and then I'm just a competitor. I love to compete, and just want to do it at the highest level.
All right, that was Georgia tight end Brock Bowers. Again, plans right now, I will be in Lucas Oil to see him do his drills along with the other tight ends and the DBs. Definitely very important to see that footwork and all that kind of stuff in person if I can. Coming up next, we are going to talk about the winners from day one of the drills here at the NFL Scouting Combine, Indianapolis, Indiana. That's coming up next on Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. What is the first thing you would do if you had an extra hour in your day? Maybe you would go for a run. Maybe you would take a nap. Maybe you would read a book. Maybe you would show up for a friend in need. The bottom line is a lot of us spend our lives wishing that we had more time. The question is, what are you wanting that time for? If time was unlimited, how would you use it? The best way to squeeze that special thing you want to do into your schedule is to know what's important for you and to make it a priority. Well, therapy can help you find what matters to you so that you can do more of it and find time to do more of it. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge if it doesn't work out. Learn to make time for what makes you happy with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. Wrapping up today's episode of Locked On Commanders, talking about winners from the defensive line and linebacker drills at the NFL Scouting Combine, the first night of drills. And guys, we're basically starting the list of players that we want to study deeper into this offseason. We can't study every single player on the draft boards, and these lists that we're putting together aren't necessarily going to be the only players that we're going to study, but insiders, you can look forward to some film study coming your way. Again, if you're new to the show for whatever reason, I can't broadcast tape on the channel because we don't have the licenses for it, and we follow the rules. I know not everybody does, but we do here. But insiders, because it's not public and because I'm not selling it and all these other rules, I will be sharing some film study observations with you. We'll do some film study observations on the show as well, but you're not going to be able to see what I'm talking about as well as the insiders will. So again, if you want to get in on that, coming up, join subtext.com/LockedOnCommanders. Starting with the defensive line players that really stood out for me. Defensive lineman Braden Fisk, I think he really had himself a good day. Florida State defensive lineman, ran the fastest 40 of his group, 4.78, had the third fastest 10-yard split among defensive linemen, which is obviously incredibly important. 33rd team actually sent out a tweet during the drills, said, quote, better vertical than George Pickens, faster than Nick Bosa, same broad jump as Roquan Smith. Very impressive group to be a part of. He did end up slipping in one of the pad drills and actually came up with some really impressive explosiveness out of it. And that's the kind of thing you want to see. Like, you obviously would love to see the body control balance to not slip in the first place. But if you're going to slip, how do you recover? And in the way that he recovered actually left me very, very impressed. Pre-combine projection for Fisk is a third round projection. Some other guys that stood out for various reasons: defensive tackle Mekhi Wingo out of LSU. He had the fastest 10-yard split at 1.53. Defensive lineman Byron Murphy II out of Texas, obviously, is another guy that we've had our eye on, but he also stood out. His pre-combine projection is a mid-first round. Defensive lineman Rook Orhoro out of Clemson. He stood out as well. And it's, obviously he's one of the guys that they pointed out. If you watch the broadcast like I did, they pointed him out ahead of time. But then, as the broadcast went on, certainly stood out. He's got a pre-combine projection of a third round grade. Look, interior defensive line, not something the Washington Commanders necessarily need a lot of, but certainly, these third round guys, stuff like that. Mid first, it's going to be more of an interest type of deal, and we'll see how much the trade back talks pick up. But interior defensive line, not a real hot spot, but the edge is a very hot spot. So we've got a longer list there of players that stood out and players that we want to come back and look at potentially. Chop Robinson out of Penn State is one that we've been talking about. We'll continue to talk about. He had the fastest 10-yard split of the edge group. His 40 time was 4.48. He said he wanted to run a 4.4. He ran a 4.4. Pre-combine projection has him about a late first round pick. So Commanders maybe would have to trade back into the end of day one. Wouldn't hate seeing that at all. Dallas Turner out of Alabama had the fastest 40, 4.47 10-yard split, or 4.47 was his 40 time. His 10-yard split was 1.54. He is, of course, a first-round projection. Leatu Latu out of UCLA also stood out, another first-rounder. Jared Verse, Florida State, a first-rounder. So obviously those guys standing out for good reason. But Marshawn Nealon out of CMU also stood out. He's a third-round projection, so he's someone who's very interesting and definitely within the Washington Commanders' reach if they want him. Mo Camara out of Colorado State stood out, not just because growing up spending my formative years in Colorado, I was a Colorado State guy, not a Colorado Buffaloes guy. But anyway, Mo Camara, fifth round projection right now, stood out a little bit. Darius Robinson out of Missouri, an early second round projection as well. So we'll be studying a lot of those guys, mostly those day 2, day 3 guys, the day 1 guys. It's going to be a lot of quarterback. You know what I mean? We'll do a little bit of defensive players, a little bit of tackles, stuff like that. But mostly your defensive guys are going to come day 2. Day 3. Looking at the linebacker group, Peyton Wilson out of NC State had the fastest 40. He ran a 4.44. His 10-yard split was a 1.55, which is very impressive. He is a pre-combine projection of a second-round pick. Tyrese Knight out of UTEP had the fastest 10-yard split, 1.54, and then run a 4.63 40. He's at a pre-combine grade of 6th, but he is very fast, obviously. And we know that's something that the Washington Commanders are looking for. So you could see them invest a late round pick in getting another depth linebacker there. Steel Chambers out of Ohio State actually stuck out to me for some reasons. He's a currently projected to be an undrafted free agent, so maybe a 7th round pick for the Commanders or just a priority UDFA. Edgerrin Cooper out of Texas A&M, of course, we talked about him. He's a pre-combine projection of a 2nd round pick. Cedric Gray out of North Carolina has a pre-combine projection as a 3rd round pick, also stood out. Tyron Hooper out of Missouri is a 5th round projection. Curtis Jacobs out of Penn State really stood out to me, actually. He's a 5th round projection. Jeremiah Trotter Jr. out of Clemson did some things. He's someone that we've talked about before. He's at a 3rd round projection. And of course, Dallas Turner. I think we actually put him in the edge group, but he's at a 1st round grade. So we'll talk about all those guys again. They just kind of stuck out from the drills, watching them in real time from the first day. We'll continue to do that. And we're basically, like I said, we're starting our list of the prospects that we're going to be studying as we get from the scouting combine into April. I will be looking to go to some pro days. The schools closest to me, Maryland, Penn State, all that kind of stuff. But I am thinking about taking a trip down to Baton Rouge for LSU, down to Chapel Hill for North Carolina. I'm not going to Los Angeles for USC's pro day. Sorry, it's just not going to happen. But we'll continue to build the list. So if you want to add to the list from someone that's already been on there, by all means, throw that in there. If you want to throw your support behind a guy and say you want to get this study earlier, go ahead and let me know. And the names that I hear the most out of you guys will get the first crack at these film studies. So a lot of fun stuff to come coming up. And again, stay tuned to the channel. Again, my intention is to publish some bonus content this weekend based on what I see out there at the drills. Bottom line, no matter what, worst case scenario, Monday, we'll do a full combine weekend recap, winners and losers. No, not really losers. I don't really like doing losers from the combine, but we'll do winners from the combine and talk about some other things and any other news that might come up. Maybe Cam Curl gets contract over the weekend. Who knows? But in the meantime, if you got questions or comments, throw them in the YouTube comment section or text me by becoming a Locked On Commanders Insider. Go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnCommanders to do that. Don't forget to check out Locked On Sports today. And as always, thank you for making Locked On Commanders your first listener, first view today and every day. Every day, thanks for coming through on a regular basis like you do. Until we speak again, please be safe, be kind, and I'll see you next time for another episode of Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.